I remember the exact moment I stepped into the wedding hall, the soft rustle of my silk sari brushing against my skin like a reminder that I wasn't the same fragile girl my family once dismissed. Crystal chandeliers cast golden patterns across the marbled floor, and laughter rippled through the air, blending with the scent of roses and jasmine. But my eyes fell instantly on her, Jessica, my cousin. She was seated in the chair that should have been mine, right in the front row, glowing as if the whole evening was hers to command. Her laughter rang a little too loud, her posture too proud. I felt the old sting, sharp but fleeting, like a paper cut reopening after years. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. As I settled quietly in the corner, adjusting the edge of my sari, I heard the shuffle of polished shoes approaching. It was Daniel, the groom, his smile bright, his voice carrying over the hum of music. "There you are," he said warmly. "I've been looking for you. I just wanted to thank you for everything. None of this would have been possible without you. Sponsoring the wedding, it means the world to us." And just like that, every pair of eyes turned toward me. My cousin froze mid-laugh. The irony was delicious. I simply smiled, though inside, memories stirred like restless ghosts. Long before that evening, before chandeliers and whispered stares, I was just the overlooked girl in my own family. Growing up in Boston, I was constantly compared to Jessica. She was the golden child, blonde curls, perfect grades, and a smile that made relatives beam with pride. I was the one with ink-stained fingers, sketching designs in the margins of notebooks. Too quiet, too different. At least that's what they said. I'll never forget the day that defined everything. It was Jessica's 18th birthday party, and the entire family had gathered in my uncle's backyard. Fairy lights twinkled, music played, and everyone was celebrating her acceptance into a prestigious college. I had applied to the same school but hadn't heard back yet. When my acceptance letter finally arrived, I rushed inside, breathless with excitement. "I got in," I shouted, holding the envelope like treasure. But instead of joy, silence followed. Jessica smirked. My aunt placed a gentle but dismissive hand on my shoulder. "That's wonderful, Emily," she said, her voice syrupy. "But don't you think it'll be tough for you? Maybe a smaller college would suit you better." Laughter trickled around me, quiet but sharp. My hands trembled, clutching that letter until the paper crinkled. I swallowed hard, forcing back tears. I wanted to scream that I was just as capable, but the words lodged in my throat like stones. Later that night, my grandmother found me sitting on the porch steps, staring at the sky. She pressed a small, delicate gold bangle into my palm. Her eyes, lined with wisdom, softened as she said, "Your worth isn't measured by where they seat you, Emily. One day, you'll build a table of your own." Her words sank deep into me, soothing the raw edges of humiliation. The next morning, when Jessica bragged about how she'd own college life, I quietly packed my bags. No dramatic announcement, no tears in front of them, just resolve. I left that house carrying little more than my acceptance letter, the gold bangle, and a silent vow I would never beg for a place at their table again. I would carve out my own, even if it meant sitting alone for a while. That was the first night I slept in a bare apartment on the edge of town, staring at cracked walls and thinking of all the things they said I couldn't do. I promised myself I would prove them wrong, not with words, but with a life they could never imagine. And slowly, painfully, that journey began. Those first months alone were brutal. My apartment was the kind of place where the heater rattled all night and the window blinds never quite closed. I'd sit on the floor with instant noodles, my textbooks spread around me, and the bangle from my grandmother warm against my wrist. It was the only reminder that someone believed in me. At college, I was no star. While Jessica posted pictures of sorority parties and ski trips, I worked double shifts at a cafe to pay my rent. The smell of coffee clung to my clothes. My fingers ached from typing essays until dawn. But every tip I pocketed and every grade I earned felt like a small rebellion, proof that I could hold my own. It was during one of those endless nights in the library that I met Professor Margaret Lawson. She noticed me sketching designs in the margin of my economics notes. Instead of scolding me, she leaned over and said, "You know, design isn't just art, it's business. Have you ever considered turning that into something real?" That single question shifted everything. She became my mentor, guiding me into the world of entrepreneurship. I started small, designing custom invitations and event stationery for classmates. My first client paid me $50. 50. But I treated it like a fortune, buying better paper, better tools. Slowly, word spread. My designs ended up in weddings, corporate events, fundraisers. Of course, there were setbacks. Clients who didn't pay. Printers that broke down the night before deadlines. Nights where I sobbed into my pillow, convinced I wasn't cut out for this. But every time I wanted to quit, I remembered Jessica's smirk, my aunt's dismissive pat, and my grandmother's words. That combination of hurt and hope fueled me more than caffeine ever could. By graduation, I wasn't just surviving. I had a client list, a modest savings account, and the first real spark of independence. Instead of applying for a traditional job, I threw myself into growing my business. I rented a tiny studio above a laundromat, painted the walls white, and called it my office. The wins came slowly, but they came. A law firm ordered 500 embossed invitations. A fashion boutique hired me to design their branding. Each project added another brick to the foundation of something bigger. And yet, I told no one at home. On social media, I stayed vague. "Work's keeping me busy," I'd write, while Jessica posted photos from exotic vacations. Let them think I was average, struggling, invisible. There was a strange power in that secrecy, like I was guarding a treasure no one else deserved to see yet. Years passed. My business grew beyond what I'd ever dared to imagine. What started as invitations expanded into full-scale event sponsorships and planning. I built a team, opened offices in 2 cities, and eventually became the quiet force behind some of the most glamorous weddings in New England. And still, my family never asked, or perhaps they never cared. I didn't correct them when they assumed Jessica was the successful one. I let them believe their own narrative. Because deep down I was waiting for the moment when truth would speak louder than any defense I could ever give. The wedding hall glittered with chandeliers, champagne flutes chiming, violins filling the air with sweetness. On the surface, it was perfect. But underneath, there was tension, a current only I could feel. From my seat near the back, I watched Jessica bask in attention. She sat in the front row as though the evening belonged to her. My uncle leaned close, whispering something that made her laugh. A few relatives glanced in my direction, their smirks faint but sharp. The unspoken message was clear. You didn't make it.
She did.
I kept my face serene, though inside, my chest tightened. Not from envy, but from the weight of all those years. Then Daniel, the groom, rose to make a toast. His tall frame commanded the room, his smile genuine. He spoke about love, about family, about gratitude. And then his eyes landed on me. "There's one person here tonight without whom this celebration would never have been possible," he said. "Emily." A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. Forks clinked against plates. I felt the sudden heat of dozens of eyes turning my way. Daniel continued. "She believed in us. She sponsored this entire wedding, every flower, every meal, every note of music. We are standing here today because of her generosity." The silence that followed was deafening. My cousin froze, the smile wiped clean from her face. My aunt's hand fell limply into her lap. My uncle's brows knitted in disbelief. I rose slowly, smoothing the silk folds of my sari. My heels clicked softly against the marble as I walked toward the front. Each step felt like reclaiming something that had been stolen long ago. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "It's true," I said calmly, meeting their eyes one by one. "I sponsored the wedding. Not because I needed recognition, but because I wanted Daniel and Lily," I gestured toward the bride, "to start their lives surrounded by joy, not financial strain." Gasps, murmurs, stares. My cousin's lips parted, but no words came out. I let the silence stretch. "For years," I continued, "I was told I wasn't enough. Not bright enough, not bold enough, not strong enough. I believed those voices once. But I left. I built something of my own. And while you assumed I was struggling, I was building this. I gestured subtly toward the hall, the golden drapes, the roses, the glittering lights, the waitstaff moving gracefully through the crowd. All of it bore my company's invisible signature. I didn't come here tonight to take a seat, I said, my voice steady. I came here because I built the stage. The weight of my words settled over the room like thunder. Faces shifted, some red with embarrassment, some pale with shock. My cousin's hands clenched the edge of her chair. My aunt stared at me, her eyes wide, as if seeing me for the first time. And then something unexpected happened. Applause. It started softly from Daniel, then Lily, then a few others who knew what it meant to fight for a dream. Soon, the hall was filled with clapping, a sound that drowned out years of doubt. I didn't smile in triumph. I simply breathed, deeply, freely. This wasn't revenge. This was revelation. My cousin shrank back in her seat. For once, her glow dimmed. And I felt no bitterness. Only peace. Because this moment wasn't about her losing. It was about me finally being seen. After the applause softened and people returned to their seats, the air hung heavy with unspoken words. My relatives avoided my eyes, shifting uncomfortably, as though the chandeliers above had turned into spotlights exposing every judgment they had once whispered about me. Jessica finally broke the silence. Her voice, usually dripping with confidence, trembled. Emily, why didn't you ever tell us? Why keep all of this hidden? I turned to her, my expression calm. Because it wasn't for you. My journey wasn't about proving anything to the family, it was about proving something to myself. The only reason it matters now is because you all need to see what resilience looks like. Her face flushed. My aunt leaned forward, wringing her hands. We didn't know, we thought, she trailed off, shame swallowing her words. I inhaled slowly, steadying myself. This was the moment where old wounds could twist into power. But I didn't want cruelty. I wanted clarity. I don't hold grudges, I said, but I do believe in accountability. Their eyes lifted, wary. To my aunt and uncle, I continued, you raised Jessica to believe she was above others. That pride has poisoned her, and it nearly broke me. If you want my help in the future, you need to change that pattern. Support her dreams, but also teach her humility. They nodded quickly, the weight of guilt settling in. I turned to Jessica. She bristled, her chin lifted high, but I could see the cracks forming in her facade. Jessica, I said softly, I don't need your apology. What I need is for you to stop competing with me. Stop treating life like a race you must win at my expense. You have talents, use them. Find what you love, not what makes you look superior. Until then, all the money in the world won't make you happy. Her lips quivered, though she tried to mask it. Finally, I looked around at the rest of the family. Cousins, uncles, aunts, all the ones who had snickered, dismissed, or looked the other way. If you want to be in my life, it has to be built on respect. Not gossip. Not competition. Not judgment. Respect. The hall was silent. For once, no one had a clever retort. I straightened my shoulders, the bangle on my wrist catching the light. I've built a business, a team, and a future I'm proud of. I don't owe anyone here anything. But I choose, because of love, not obligation, to give you this chance to change. If you can't, then it's simple. Stay out of my way. The firmness in my tone left no room for debate. Jessica lowered her gaze. My aunt dabbed her eyes with a napkin. A few relatives nodded, slowly, as if understanding the lesson for the first time. For years, they had expected me to beg for belonging. Now they were asking for mine. And it felt like the first true balance I had ever experienced. The rest of the evening unfolded differently. The laughter returned, but it was softer now, tinged with reflection rather than mockery. I noticed how my uncle leaned in closer to my aunt, their faces serious as they whispered. My younger cousins, kids who had once parroted Jessica's arrogance, watched me with wide eyes, as if suddenly realizing there was more than one version of success. Jessica stayed quiet for most of the night. She avoided my gaze, her hands folded tightly in her lap. But when the music softened and guests drifted toward the dance floor, she approached me. Her voice was low, almost fragile. "I don't know who I am without trying to outshine you," she admitted. Maybe that's the problem. I studied her for a long moment. Once, I would have given anything to hear those words. Now, they felt less like victory and more like a necessary truth. "You'll figure it out," I said gently. "But only if you stop measuring yourself against me. You're not my competition, Jessica. You never were." Her eyes shimmered with something, regret, maybe, or relief. She nodded and stepped back, letting the weight of those words sink in. Later, as I walked out into the crisp night air, I let the cool breeze wash over me. The scent of roses lingered on my sari, mixed with the faint trace of perfume. I touched the gold bangle on my wrist, its smooth curve pressing into my skin. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. "Your worth isn't measured by where they seat you. One day, you'll build a table of your own." And she had been right. I had walked through fire, through loneliness, through every shadow of doubt they cast over me. And I had built not just a table, but a home, a business, a future strong enough to carry others. I wasn't leaving the wedding with bitterness. I was leaving with clarity. The family could change or stay the same, that was their choice. But I would no longer bend, shrink, or beg for space. As I reached my car, I caught my reflection in the window.
Strong, composed, free.
I smiled, a quiet curve of triumph. "Let them take my seat if they want," I whispered into the night. "I've built a throne of my own." And with that, I drove away, not from them, but toward everything I had created for myself.